I wake up in the middle of the night and can't sleep, and my brain starts thinking, and it's quiet. It's so quiet that I can think about what I want to talk about. This morning I'm going to give the first talk on the integral framework. And the integral framework is a way of looking at things that creates common language that can be used across disciplines. Discipline being personal growth, psychology, chemistry, criminal justice, education, medicine. Those are disciplines. And the beauty of the integral framework, which has been around since at least 2007, and the interest in it is growing because of the ability because of the ability of creating the common language, of creating precision when we want to talk about the legal system and the prison system, right? They are interconnected with one another, and they need to be able to talk to one another about how those things work so that improvements can be made. And so, the integral framework is very it's not technical. It really isn't. It is robust, is a good word for it. It's a robust frame of reference that allows us to study and look at things and know that we are talking about the same things. So we're going to start with just a little bit of geometry, because the integral framework starts with 4 quadrants. And some of you maybe know a lot about data analysis, and this really appeals to you because it bing, I get it, I understand quadrants. But basically it just is a place to categorize information and how things get categorized. And so the first quadrant in any integral framework is the upper left quadrant. And then we have the lower left, right? The lower left, the upper right, and the lower right. And when we agree on what types of information are going to go into these quadrants, that's what's the beauty of this framework, is there's an agreement that if we're going to talk about the upper left quadrant, we know we have a common agreement of what type of information goes in this square. And we also have one for the lower left and the upper right and the lower right. So we can talk about these things with one another, and we have a mutual shared reference point. Okay? The reference point for the upper left is I. It's me. Individual person things always go in the upper left quadrant. The lower left quadrant is group things. We. Whether it's a scout troop, whether it's a high school class, whether it's my group of patrons, whether it's everybody who lives in a city, town, state, country, world, we, right? Those conversations we all know as a common reference point occur about the lower left quadrant. Okay? The upper right quadrant is it. It is not about people. It is about a thing, right? The table, the chair, the TV. I'm looking around my house. Something, a building, right? Something happens, but this thing doesn't have feelings. The lower right quadrant is reserved for its. Its is in the lower right quadrant. This is where systems, where when we want to talk about a system, we know as a common reference point, we are talking about the lower right quadrant. And a system would be things like our education system, our criminal justice system, our healthcare system. We are looking at an it's, right? It has people in it, it has we's, and it has I's that partake of the system, and they also contribute to it, right? But the system itself is something that is observed by scientists, sociologists, anthropologists, psychologists. They observe that system. Legislators, right? They're looking at how things operate. Okay, so in a nutshell, we have 4 quadrants that we're talking about. Most of what you and I are going to talk about are going to be on this left side panel, right? Because we've all got an I and we've got a we in this group. Right? So 2 other points. Well, maybe 3. The left side quadrants are subjective. Subjective. That means that what happens, what is discussed on these 2 quadrants includes feelings. Right? The right side quadrants are objective. My writing is terrible. But objective means without feelings, right? So we can study cars, right? Cars don't have feelings. We know that cars are changing. Technology is changing. That information is going into it. So a single car would be an it's, and how multiple cars get made are it's, right? Still objective, singular, plural, no feelings. Singular, plural, with feelings. And that's it for today. That's all I'm going to talk about. Just kind of take that in and think about it. And think about the things you come across. I just want to throw this out there. There's a big to-do over something called critical race theory. Critical race theory is being interpreted in the news as upper left and lower left quadrants. But critical race theory is not. It is here. It is looking at, it's looking at the criminal justice system. It's a framework for looking at the criminal justice system and looking for how systemic racism plays out in our criminal justice system in the United States. It's an it's. It doesn't have feelings. It's not trying to teach children anything about racism. It has no feeling. It is the laws that govern the criminal justice system. It is a framework for looking at those laws and a methodology for looking at those laws from a lower right perspective. It's looking at that system. So all of brouhaha is just a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of propaganda to try to create fear and discord between people who don't even understand that it has nothing to do with the upper left and the lower left quadrants. It does ultimately, but it's for looking at it this method, this quadrant. So that's it for the day on integral framework. Oh, sorry, I forgot to tell you where I got this. I learned about this from reading Ken Wilber's Integral Spirituality. He's taken this framework and applied it to spirituality, and it makes so much sense. And it helps take the magic out of spirituality. So it's the subheading for this book is called A Startling New Role for Religion in the Modern and Postmodern World. And I had to read this book twice. It's heavily highlighted. It's got little tabbies. It's got definitions written on the inside all over in the book. If you're deeply curious, pick up this book. It's really good. Thanks. Bye-bye.